pay for imports. The Bank of Namibia is responsible for the regulation of inflow and outflow of foreign currency. This assists in the overall management of foreign reserves. The Bank of Namibia fulfills these functions to support economic growth and development. What does the Bank of Namibia do for you and Namibia? Also known as the Central Bank of Namibia, the bank makes sure that banking and financial institutions under its supervision are safe, sound, and able to withstand any shocks. One of the ways the bank does this is by supervising commercial banks. The Bank of Namibia monitors the national payment and settlement system to make sure that our transactions are safe, legal, cost-effective, and timely. The bank also facilitates payments between people as they transact through various commercial banks. The bank ensures a stable supply of good quality banknotes and coins within the country. The Bank of Namibia makes sure that prices of goods and services in the economy do not increase too quickly, keeping the value of the Namibian dollar stable, whether it is in your pocket or bank. The Bank of Namibia provides banking services to commercial banks and government. As banker to the government, the bank is responsible for processing government payments domestically and internationally. The bank also manages Namibia's foreign reserves, allowing us to pay for imports. The Bank of Namibia is responsible for the regulation of inflow and outflow of foreign currency. This assists in the overall management of foreign reserves. The Bank of Namibia fulfills these functions to support economic growth and development. What does the Bank of Namibia do for you and Namibia? Also known as the Central Bank of Namibia, the bank makes sure that banking and financial institutions under its supervision are safe, sound, and able to withstand any shocks. One of the ways the bank does this is by supervising commercial banks. The Bank of Namibia monitors the national payment and settlement system to make sure that our transactions are safe, legal, cost-effective, and timely. The bank also facilitates payments between people as they transact through various commercial banks. The bank ensures a stable supply of good quality banknotes and coins within the country. The Bank of Namibia makes sure that prices of goods and services in the economy do not increase too quickly, keeping the value of the Namibian dollar stable, whether it is in your pocket or bank. The Bank of Namibia provides banking services to commercial banks and government. As banker to the government, the bank is responsible for processing government payments domestically and internationally. The bank also manages Namibia's foreign reserves, allowing us to pay for imports. The Bank of Namibia is responsible for the regulation of inflow and outflow of foreign currency. This assists in the overall management of foreign reserves. The Bank of Namibia fulfills these functions to support economic growth and development. What does the Bank of Namibia do for you and Namibia? Also known as the Central Bank of Namibia, the bank makes sure that banking and financial institutions under its supervision are safe, sound, and able to withstand any shocks. One of the ways the bank does this is by supervising commercial banks. The Bank of Namibia monitors the national payment and settlement system to make sure that our transactions are safe, legal, cost-effective, and timely. The bank also facilitates payments between people as they transact through various commercial banks. The bank ensures a stable supply of good quality banknotes and coins within the country. The Bank of Namibia makes sure that prices of goods and services in the economy do not increase too quickly, keeping the value of the Namibian dollar stable, whether it is in your pocket or bank. The Bank of Namibia provides banking services to commercial banks and government. As banker to the government, the bank is responsible for processing government payments domestically and internationally. The bank also manages Namibia's foreign reserves, allowing us to pay for imports. The Bank of Namibia is responsible for the regulation of inflow and outflow of foreign currency. This assists in the overall management of foreign reserves. The Bank of Namibia fulfills these functions to support economic growth and development. What does the Bank of Namibia do for you and Namibia? Also known as the Central Bank of Namibia, the bank makes sure that banking
Governor Gavachab, Deputy Governor Wanguta, Deputy Governor Dan, Monetary Policy Committee members, management and staff of the Bank of Namibia, members of the media, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think we can get a more enthusiastic good morning for the final MPA. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the sixth and final monetary policy announcement for 2025. We are delighted to once again welcome our media practitioners in the room and wish to thank you for honoring our invitation to join us today. We also extend a warm welcome to our online viewers and those joining into the broadcast, coming to you live from the Bank of Namibia auditorium. This particular announcement carries special significance as it also marks the final monetary policy announcement to be delivered by our outgoing governor, Dr. Johannes Gavachab. As such, we are honored to share this special moment with you. Over the past 2 days, the Monetary Policy Committee, chaired by the governor, convened to deliberate on the appropriate monetary policy stance for the country for the next 2 months. A decision was reached yesterday, and the governor will announce and unpack it shortly. Thereafter, we will welcome questions from the media practitioners in the room. Those will be our proceedings for the morning. My name is Nafiko Hamunime, and I work for the bank's Strategic Communications Department. With those introductions out of the way, it is both my privilege and my honor to invite the Governor of the Bank of Namibia, Dr. Johannes Gavachab, to deliver not only the final monetary policy decision for 2025, but also his final monetary policy announcement. Governor, the floor is yours.
The task of a central bank governor is simple to state, but hard to live. To steady the ship when the seas are calm, and especially when they are not. It has been my honor of my life to do so with you. Today I deliver my final policy rate decision, not as an ending, but as a handover of responsibility we have carried together. That responsibility is to safeguard stability for generations that follow, or will follow. On the 1st and 2nd of December, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Namibia held its bi-monthly meeting of 2025 to decide on the appropriate monetary policy stance for the next 2 months, guided by incoming data and the assessment thereof. to continue safeguarding the peg between the Namibia dollar and the South African rand while supporting the domestic economy, the MPC decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. Let's consider recent economic developments in our country. The domestic economy grew moderately. Inflation has remained well contained, while growth in the private sector slowed since the previous MPC meeting. The merchandise trade deficit narrowed while the stock of international reserves remains sufficient to maintain the currency peg and meet the country's international financial obligations. High-frequency indicators in the domestic economy suggest that while economic activity maintained positive growth, the pace of expansion slowed during the first 10 months of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. The slowdown was primarily driven by contractions in the manufacturing sector, diamond mining, livestock farming, and transport subsectors. Given the generally subdued economic activity so far in 2025, real gross domestic product growth is now projected to slow from 3.7% in 2024 to 3% in 2025. That's 0.5 percentage point lower than the previous forecast. Looking ahead, real GDP growth, however, is projected to recover to 3.8% in 2026 and further to 4.3% in 2027. This recovery is expected to be primarily underpinned by a rebound in the agriculture sector, a sustained upturn in construction, robust electricity generation, and stronger output from the uranium subsector. Downside risks to the outlook remain and include the possibility of renewed drought conditions, infrastructure constraints, and sluggish global demand. Annual inflation remained contained and averaged 3.6% during the first 10 months of 2025, compared to 4.5% during the same period in 2024. The disinflation was primarily reflected in the categories of housing, transport, and alcoholic beverages. Nevertheless, compared to the previous month, inflation rose marginally to 3.6% in October 2025 from 3.5% in September 2025. The inflation projection for 2025 remains stable at 3.6%, while that for 26 has been revised downwards by 0.2 percentage point to 3.8% compared to the previous forecast. The 2026 revision reflects a stronger exchange rate assumption and a favorable oil price outlook. Risk to the forecast remain exchange rate volatility and potential increases in administered and oil prices. The annual growth in private sector credit extension, PSCE, slowed to 4.7% in October 2025, from 5.8% recorded in August 2025. This slowdown reflects a reduction in credit extended to the corporate sector. Year to date, however, annual PSCE growth stood higher on the back of increased borrowing from the corporate sector, with household credit remaining subdued. On the external sector, Namibia's merchandise trade deficit narrowed to 14.5% to 25.8 billion Namibian dollars during the first 10 months of 2025 compared to the corresponding period in 2024. The improved trade deficit was largely due to higher export earnings, particularly from uranium and gold, relative to import payments during the period under review. The stock of international reserves stood at 48.6 billion Namibian dollar at the end of October 2025, a decline from 54.7 billion Namibian dollars recorded at the end of September 2025. The reduction in foreign reserves was predominantly due to foreign debt repayments, including the Eurobond redemption and high import payments. This level of foreign reserves translates to an estimated import cover of 3.2 months, which still remains adequate to sustain the currency peg between the Namibia dollar and the South African rand and meet the country's international financial obligations. Let's consider global economic developments. Global economic growth has remained moderate since the previous MPC meeting. Inflation has eased globally across monitored economies, while key commodity prices displayed divergent trends. Key global stock markets continue to depict gains, while bond yields fell. The South African Reserve Bank reduced its policy rate, with other monetary policy authorities mostly maintained their policy rates steady. Global growth appears to have moderated since the last MPC meeting. Available third quarter GDP data suggests that economic activity slowed across monitored economies, with the notable exception of India, which maintained an upward growth trajectory. Looking ahead, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in its October 2025 World Economic Outlook, projects global growth to slow from 3.3% in 2024 to 3.2% and 3.1% in 2025 and 2026, respectively. Prices of most key commodities have diverged since the previous MPC meeting. The price of gold remained resilient during the period under review, primarily sustained by safe haven demand by both institutional and retail investors. Zinc and copper prices have also trended upward, mainly supported by supply chain challenges and robust global demand. In contrast, although the uranium spot prices remain firm, it has receded somewhat, reflecting tapering supply concerns alongside an improved supply outlook. Similarly, crude oil prices moderated during the same period, attributable to increased supply. Meanwhile, diamond prices remained under pressure, partly ascribed to competition from lab-grown diamonds. Key global stock markets were relatively volatile over the past 2 months. However, they have rallied most recently, primarily driven by technology stocks and renewed optimism regarding a potential rate cut by the US Federal Reserve in December 2025. Conversely, bond yields trended downward, with a notable decline in South Africa, supported by an improved fiscal outlook, the reduction in the policy rate, and lower inflation expectations in that country. Global consumer price inflation has remained contained across the monitored economies relative to levels observed at the previous MPC sitting. Among the advanced economies, inflation was lower in the United Kingdom and the Euro area, while it edged up slightly in the United States and Japan. Furthermore, inflation slowed in most of the monitored emerging market and developing economies, except in China and South Africa, where it increased marginally, although South Africa expects inflation to remain contained in the medium term. Looking ahead, the IMF projects global inflation to decline from 5.8% in 2024 to 4.2% in 2025 and 3.7% in 2026. Most of the monitored central banks continue to hold policy rates steady since the previous MPC meeting. The exceptions were the US Federal Reserve, the Bank of Russia, and the South African Reserve Bank, which reduced policy rates at the most recent meetings. So given all these developments, what's our monetary policy stance? The MPC decided to maintain the repo rate at 6.5%. Commercial banks are accordingly expected to keep the prime lending rates at 10.125%. This policy stance is deemed appropriate for safeguarding the one-to-one link between the Namibia dollar and the South African rand while remaining supportive of domestic economic activity. In determining the appropriate monetary policy stance, the committee noted the prolonged global policy uncertainty and potential risk to the domestic economy. Furthermore, the formal adoption of the 3% inflation target by South Africa necessitates additional vigilance by the Namibian authorities in managing domestic inflation to ensure the continued smooth functioning of the exchange rate peg. Despite a deceleration in the pace of domestic economic activity, the overall environment remains positive, with both current and projected inflation well contained and growth set to recover in the medium term. While capital flows were assessed to be orderly and the MPC was gratified by the smooth redemption of the Eurobond, narrowing the interest rate differential with South Africa was equally deemed essential. The normalization of the prime repo rate spread anticipated by year-end is expected to provide further support to the domestic economy, bringing the level of the prime rate to 10% at the end of December this year. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Governor. We will now open the floor for questions. If there are questions in the room, there are podiums on either side of the stage. So please make your way. Remember to introduce yourself, state your name, the organization that you represent before asking your question. Are there any questions in the room? Shania, I see you're making your way already. Please.
It's a bit too short for me, but firstly, Governor, congratulations. I think you have officially done 34 sessions with the MPC, if I'm not mistaken. I calculated. So congratulations. What would you say was one of the biggest highlights from those meetings, all 34 of them? The one thing you took away. The second question is, you have consistently informed us that data, analysis, and inflation are what decides the MPC's decisions, basically. So my question is, what would you say is the best monetary policy for the country, for our country, considering that we always seem to be a taker of what the South African Reserve Bank does? My third question is, in July 2023, during a courtesy visit with our late president, Governor, you mentioned that the previous head of state at the time was very, very happy with you, and the board was very happy. So my next question would be, considering you just had 1 year before your tenure was supposed to come to an end, could you kindly please provide us clarity on why you are leaving early? Is it that the head of state is not happy with the performance? And that's just the fourth question would be, Governor, the South African Reserve Bank is moving away from Zaronia to JIBA. These are interbank offered rates. And they are currently also hosting a conference on it. I know that in Namibia in 2011, we did introduce WIBAR, which is WIBAR, right? And that's what we have been currently using. So are we looking at transitioning, seeing as a lot of countries are actually transitioning into new interbank rates, or are we going to remain here? Has a discussion started? Are we looking at changing any of that anytime soon? Now, Governor, you also indicated at a time during your tenure that you have disposed of stake in a private equity space, that because obviously you're a businessman. And at that time, because of some, it was not very clear, the Competition Commission had fined you about $1 million. So my question is, considering you are now you are not going to be the governor anymore, are you going to go back to the private space? Are you going to buy back that stake? Or are you going to start a completely new business? And now just to conclude on a very lighter note, Governor, 69 years old, how do you feel? What are your prospects for Namibia come the next 10 years? And obviously, just a Christmas message for the rest of the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shania. You've given us 7 different points to reflect on. I see we also have one more question, and then, Governor, I think we can take it from there, if you're comfortable.
No, these are quite a lot of questions I'm happy to take.
Okay.
Nick, I'll be happy if you take the Jaiba Sarone one. We discussed that the other day in the MC meeting. So if you can cover the readiness, the exposure, the conversations we had, that will be good. Right, so you always got nice questions, good questions. Thank you very much for those, Shania. Let me start with 34 sessions. With 2 days, it's actually 35. So let's just look at the data and the facts. I've asked my colleagues to do some work around how many of those decisions were unchanged, how many of those were up, and how many were down. Because some people said you were dovish, some were saying hawkish. So let's look at the facts. So 18 of those, and if you count today, it's 19 out of 35 decisions were unchanged. And 9 were up, is it Daisy? And 7 were down. So that should give you an indication that the monetary policy decision is under my stewardship. It's not a one-person decision. It's the people that you see over there and those 2 there, those 7 people. They will take those decisions, and I can tell you it was very much data-driven decisions. It's not a hawkish or dovish governor. It's data-driven. It's not ideology. It's looking at the realities of the country, and based on that, we have taken decisions in the best interest of the country. So if you just look at the outcome of that, you look at the scoreboard and said, what's happening with our macroeconomic stability? I can tell you that inflation is currently, I've actually asked someone to do the work for me, and I don't know whether you are invited for tonight, because some of the questions you are posing I could deal with tonight in greater detail, where we have got a couple of people to look at the highlights of my time as a governor. So, if you look at macroeconomic stability in the country and look at the average inflation over June 2020, when I joined, till now, it's on about 4.6% over that period. So inflation is well contained, so you cannot argue against that. It's not something we can have different opinions, because that's factual. So you can say our monetary policy making, has it helped us to create macroeconomic stability? It has, because you see the actual figure. South Africa was targeting lately a 4.5% midpoint target. Our currency is pegged, and if you compare to that, a 4.6% is very close to the outcome that they wanted in South Africa. So in Namibia, we know SADC is anything between 3 and 7%. We don't target inflation, but in SADC, the target is between 3 and 7%. So if you say on average 4.6% over the time that we collectively took decisions, we have done an excellent job. Right, what's the best monetary policy we have got for Namibia? I think I can talk with authority on this one. And the current arrangement that we have got is the best arrangement for this country. We imported low inflation, and we have got macroeconomic stability on the back of a bigger brother. Everybody says that, you know, we just follow South Africa, and that's a very superficial conversation that people have. You know, the PEC arrangement served this country quite well. And if you ask me, is that the best for this country? My considered view is, it is. If we go and have enough reserves in our country, we could probably think about the different arrangement, but at this stage, it has served us pretty well. So 12 months earlier, so it would have been in December 2026 that I would leave. When I signed up, I said I'm going to do for a full term of 5 years. And that full term expired in June. And we've got excellent people that can take this institution further. So I have achieved what I wanted to. By the end of this year, it will be 5.5 years. So there's nothing funny about that. It's what I signed up to. And the organization is fundamentally very strong, is financially sustainable. It is well positioned to increase its impact and the quality of the people that we have got as employees, as management, as directors, as deputy governors, is actually in a state that they don't need me. So it's not the end, it's a handover to the next generation of leadership, this responsibility. So that's what it is, Shania. Private equity stake, sure. So I don't want to go back into that. I'll probably look at, I really want to spend time with my family. You just alluded to my age. I don't know how you knew about that. So now it's time for family. So I really want to spend time with my family, and that's what I'm going to do over the next 3 to 6 months, and thereafter I need to decide what's up. Nick, can you deal with?
Thank you, Governor, and very good question. So we are going to follow suit what has happened in South Africa in terms of moving away from the current rate of WIBA. So where we are now is that we are engaged with different institutions in the system. So the Bank of Namibia is just going to be one of the players. So the discussions are really quite advanced. So every key institution has been identified by a subcommittee within the financial system, and we are busy naming names now so that we can look at the whole, the reference rates and how it's going to be established for next year. So the work is ongoing. Thank you.
So the important thing, Shania, is we need to look at, we have identified these institutions. We need to look at the readiness of those institutions to transition to Zaronia. And secondly, we need to look at the exposures that those institutions have got. And then we need to think about how best do we mitigate that risk and ensure the transition is as smooth as possible. But to answer your question, yes, we'll be moving on. Right.
Good afternoon. My name is Vitalio Angula. I'm with Alan Dreyfus African News and Analysis, African Market News and Analysis. And yeah, my question I have is regarding the succession plan. Have you worked on a succession plan? We are all aware that the Bank of Namibia has two deputies. Some quarters I've spoken to say the future is female with Miss Leonie Dunn. Others, they say Mr. Wangwata is more suitable. And between the two, do you have a preferred candidate? And could you also walk us through so that we can have a better understanding on how you became the governor of the Bank of Namibia? Was it a direct appointment from the president, or was it subject to Public Service Commission approval, so that we can just better understand that? And then the other question, on the 31st of October, through notice in the government gazette, NAMFISA announced a change to the regulation that allows for the establishment of the Central Security Depository, which would be a 49% partnership between 49% partnership between the Bank of Namibia and 51 Namibia Stock Exchange. My question is, what are the risks for liability if something goes wrong? And in terms of separation of powers, should a decision for the Bank of Namibia going into business with the National Securities Exchange for the establishment of the CSD not being subject to approval? And I also wanted to ask, have the authorities such as the Ministry of Finance and the presidency been made aware of this development? That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are very brave questions and good questions. I almost said it's brazen to ask them. So So let me try and explain. The Bank of Namibia Act is quite clear about how the governor is appointed. Many people feel that, like the SOEs, there is an advertisement, there are interviews, and there's a recommendation by the board to the line minister or to the appointing authorities. It's different at the Bank of Namibia. So the Act says the governor is appointed by the president of the country on recommendation by the Public Service Commission, and clearly in that recommendation, the Ministry of Finance and the board will be consulted, but the appointment is the prerogative of the president. So you're quite right that we have got 2 deputy governors, and like any responsible organization, you need to make sure that you have got internally people that are ready to take over. So our deputy governors that you see here are ready to take over, but that appointment is the prerogative of the president. My own appointment, exactly, it was the prerogative of the president that passed on, and he decided who needed to be the next governor. He consulted what he needed to do. Obviously, it was a recommendation by the Public Service Commission, and the Minister of Finance was consulted, and the appointment was made. So and I think the same process will be followed unless the appointing authority guides otherwise. Right, so Namfisa one, I'll give Nick to give you the technical answer, but I'll give you a simple answer on that one, on CSD. What is happening? What did you say is your name? Ricardo. So what is happening with CSD is nothing changes. All we really change is we change from paper to electronic. So we just automate the process. So if you talk about what are the risks, there's quite a lot of risk probably having paper, and you just take out paper, automate, have electronic script that you have got. And what we are trying to achieve, and many people don't know, is we want to attract international investors to participate in our capital markets. And if they need to participate in our capital markets, it's easy if our script, for instance, is in electronic format. So we dematerialize paper. That's in simple language. That's what we're going to do. But Nick has got a more technical, correct answer. I'll try to simplify that for you. Nick?
Governor, I don't think my answer will be technical. Very similar to your lines that you've just given, Governor. So I think for the CSD, the launch is going to be tomorrow. So some of the questions that you've got, tomorrow we'll be able to answer them in more greater details. But really, in a nutshell, the purpose behind the CSD is that we want to actually de-risk the financial system. We want to move into essentially to modernize our financial system. So in fact, it's the opposite of your question, what we want to do. And then in terms of the central bank taking up shareholding in a CSD, this has been done in many different jurisdictions. So normally when you've got an infrastructure like this, the central bank is always one of the key drivers to de-risk it. And then later on, a decision can be made in terms of the central bank's continued shareholding on the CSD. So Governor, I think you covered most of the questions, and then tomorrow we'll be discussing in more details on the CSD. Thank you.
So if you need more detail on CSD, please join us tomorrow. It's going to be launched, and we're going to provide more detail. But de-risking the financial system, dematerializing paper, move on to electronic script, and attract more investors from outside the country to participate in our capital market. That's what we are doing. Oh, that's our involvement. Any?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, Governor. My name is Priscilla Mokokovi, journalist from the New Era newspaper. So my question is, what are your expectations for the repo rate next year? And what achievement since 2020 are you most proud of? Third one, how did you steer the Bank of Namibia through the COVID-19 crisis? Was there any particular formula during the turbulent time? And then, am I too fast? What were the biggest challenges in managing Namibia's debt and reserves, especially issues around the Eurobond? And then what legacy or reform do you hope to leave as your term ends? Thank you.
Thank you very much. To be honest with you, I would like this to be restricted to the monetary policy. Director, I wonder whether we shouldn't invite all these people tonight, because all those questions are answered I need about 45 minutes to answer those questions. So would you bear with me till tonight and join us if you are not invited, and you can get the highlights, the challenges, you get it tonight. So in terms of expectations for exchange rate for next year, we don't have a position up front that we said this is how it's going to look. We're going to look at the data, all the incoming data, and based on that we'll decide what is the appropriate stance. But we don't decide up front. That's going to be in February, the decision. But all the other questions that you have got on, how did I steer COVID-19, highlights, challenges, I'll do that for 45 minutes tonight. And if you bear with me, please come tonight. Your editor is invited, if I'm not mistaken, unless the director has decided otherwise.
Are there any other monetary policy related questions in the room? If not, can we please make your way to the podium, sir?
I think I also have got at the end, and before the thing I've asked you, I've got another announcement I want to make.
Okhane from MarketWatch, monetary policy related. The move by the South African Reserve Bank to target inflation at 3%. What are the challenges that you anticipate in ensuring that the Bank of Namibia is able to align to that vision going forward? Thank you very much.
Dr. Johan, I would like you to say something about that, and Dj Wanguta, would you add to that? Shall we give a mic there?
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for that question. So, whereas South Africa used to have the range of 3 to 6%, as you know, it is now a point target of 3%, with an allowable deviation of 1 percentage point both sides. That does not mean that the South African authorities will be happy with anything between 2 and 4%. They will actually actively pursue 3% exactly as their target over the next 2 years. Because of the lags in monetary policy, you cannot get to that value immediately, but they'll always set policy accordingly. So the implication for Namibia is then that where previously we were kind of observing a 4.5% middle of the range target in South Africa, it's now a bit lower than that. That would then mean that because of the exchange rate peg, we cannot allow our inflation to deviate too much from that of South Africa. So we must also then go for lower inflation in the long run. And I think what's quite important is it is really not just the task of monetary policy to assure that. Actually, administered prices, wages, public sector wages, all instruments across the range of the public sector should actually be sensitive to this lower rate. So I do think that for Namibians, perhaps close to retirement age, for who long-term purchasing power of their money is important, a lower inflation rate is better, and eventually lower inflation leads to lower interest rates. So all in all, I think a more stable and more helpful environment will come from that. Thank you.
Did you want to?
Thank you very much for that question on inflation targeting. So the key benefit that will be arriving from that decision by South Africa to have an point inflation target of 3% coming from the range of 3 to 6% is essentially reducing the inflation expectation. Numbers are not just numbers for the sake of being numbers, but numbers mean something to people. Now, when you put a target range of 3 to 6%, ordinarily people will prefer to form their expectation on the highest number. Now, this case around, because you have got a target of 3%, people will be rotating their expectation around 3%, meaning to say that they will be moving now from forming their expectation in terms of wage adjustment, in terms of administered price adjustment, from 6 to 3%. What does that mean? That has got a very positive impact in the entire economy in terms of reducing the cost of living, because the utility companies will no longer be adjusting their water bill, the electricity bill, by 6% or more, but they will be doing the adjustment around the 3%. Similarly, the unions as well, the adjustment will also be slightly, of course, I think a number of us will be conflicted to say that. What are you saying? But essentially, we have to think about the bigger picture, because here we are dealing with macro, we are not dealing with micro. So that will be the greatest benefit to the economy. Thank you.
And if you really need more detail, we have done a more extensive study on the impact of that on our economy. What's it going to do on inflation, on growth? So we can provide the detail. Any more final questions?
Any final questions in the room? If not, can we please give the Governor and MPC members a big round of applause?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, thank you. Thank you so much. Please bear with me for another few minutes. Dr. Johan van Heerden, an accomplished economist and a member of the Bank of Namibia Monetary Policy Committee, is also retiring from the committee at the end of this year. He has been a member of the MPC since 2017. His term expired and he wants to spend time with his family. Prior to joining the MPC, he was an economist of the South African Reserve Bank from 1987 to 2016, serving in various capacities, including as head of research and head of statistics. Altogether, he spent about 29 years at the South African Reserve Bank. I've asked him how he landed in Namibia. He said there were quite a lot of SADC and CMA members meetings in Namibia since 2000. And as head of research, he came to attend those meetings, rubbing shoulders with the Bank of Namibia staff, and he fell in love with Namibia. He did not hesitate when Florette Nakwisera, who's currently the director of our financial stability and macroprudential oversight, and our former governor, Dr. Shimi, recruited him after his retirement from SAP to join us. As an economist, the most fulfilling years of his career, he said, he spent at our MPC and helping us at the Bank of Namibia. Dr. Johan, on behalf of the MPC, on behalf of the board and members of the Bank of Namibia, thank you for your exceptional 8 years of service, your steady judgment, your analytical clarity and unwavering commitment have helped keep inflation contained. You served with purpose and dignity. In doing so, you have strengthened the credibility of our monetary policy making. You have strengthened the credibility of our institution. As John Maynard Keynes once wrote, the master economist must study the present in the light of the past for the purpose of the future. You have done exactly that. May the road ahead reward you with the fulfillment that you desire You have given our country your best, and on behalf of all the Namibians, we want to thank you for the macroeconomic stability that we have got. You have contributed to that. So whatever we do in future in monetary policy, may your footprints and your contribution serve as reference points in our decision making. Thank you, Dr. Johan. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. And before we conclude, I would now like to call upon our Deputy Governors, Deputy Governor Wanguta, Deputy Governor Dunn, to make their way to the floor for a small symbolic gesture to signify the handover of responsibilities from the Governor to our Deputy Governors.
To give a statement for me? Oh, okay, here it is. Here. So that you all see, this is not the end. This is merely a handover of monetary policy making and responsibility to my two governors. You are in good hands. In terms of monetary policy making, they are competent, capable people. It's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor. With that, we have now come to the end of our proceedings for the morning. On behalf of all of us at the Bank of Namibia, thank you all for your attendance and your participation and questions. We wish you a joyful and safe festive season. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
And financial institutions under its supervision are safe, sound, and able to withstand any shocks. One of the ways the bank does this is by supervising commercial banks. The Bank of Namibia monitors the national payment and settlement system to make sure that our transactions are safe, legal, cost-effective, and timely. The bank also facilitates payments between people as they transact through various commercial banks. The bank ensures a stable supply of good quality banknotes and coins within the country. The Bank of Namibia makes sure that prices of goods and services in the economy do not increase too quickly, keeping the value of the Namibian dollar stable, whether it is in your pocket or bank. The Bank of Namibia provides banking services to commercial banks and government. As banker to the government, the bank is responsible for processing government payments domestically and internationally. The bank also manages Namibia's foreign reserves, allowing us to pay for imports. The Bank of Namibia is responsible for the regulation of inflow and outflow of foreign currency. This assists in the overall management of foreign reserves. The Bank of Namibia fulfills these functions to support economic growth and development.